have a standing roll call.
Donald Collins.
Larry High.
J.B. Loring.
Joe Jones. Ralph Payne.
And now we'll have the prayer.
In the name of Jesus, God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for all the board members and all that make up this board. We pray that we'll be able to do your will and your way. It is in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Now the Pledge of Allegiance to the United States. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Actions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to accept the minutes as read.
We have a motion to accept. Do we have a second? Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carried. Now we go to the administrative report.
Thank you. We're going to start. For our, from 2013 to 2014 for David incarceration. Mr. Gilbert presented his request to the board at the June 7th to provide a letter explaining his situation. The follow-up letter is provided. It's on page 3 of your iPads. Let me know, we need a motion to approve his request to extend his continuing education from 2013 to 2014 if his letter satisfied your request.
I second it.
We have a second. Any conversation? Any opposed? The ayes have it, motion carried.
Next, we have applications for examination for Mr. Walter Robbie Jr., Deshaun Powers, LaQuinton Evans, Anthony Bailey, Torrance Starks, and Everett Robinson, who have felonies, are submitted in front of the boards for your approval. The required information, disclosure from the student, and a letter recommendation from the school that they attended is submitted for your review. That is correct. There's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them.
Understand how we normally handle these in the past.
Yes, sir.
Those
We will
2-year
send-
probation.
Correct, a 2-year
Okay.
probation consent order they will
All right.
complete.
They will sign a consent form with that.
That is correct.
Okay. good,
That
good,
is
good.
correct.
All right.
With the explanation to the motion. Any opposed? The ayes have it, motion carried.
Next, on your iPads, we're on page 39, in the miscellaneous section. I prepared for you the 2014 board meeting schedule presented for your approval. These dates include 3 months with no meetings, and I followed the meeting schedule like we have done for this year and the previous, with January, July, and September not having meetings. These are all the Monday, as long as there's no holiday. If you review those for me and approve them, we will post them then also on the website. That's what we did this year, and so I have it for next year, unless you want to make a change. Coming up. And that's always the case. If something comes up and we don't have enough to cover for our meeting, we would make a change, or this particular month, we changed the time, obviously. But these would be posted for the general public if they want to look ahead. They would know that on these months, we aren't having it and which ones we are. So if that's okay for your approval.
Schedule before us, do we have a motion?
If I could ask a question on the tentative before we make the motion. If there is a change, the general public will be notified on the website.
That's
Is that
what we
correct?
do. For this
Okay.
meeting, for example, I changed it a few days ago to the 10 o'clock,
Good.
and if it's eliminated altogether, we change it as soon as possible, so
Okay.
people wouldn't come. That's
All right.
correct. But this way, we've blocked the rooms far enough in
Yeah.
advance. Actually, these rooms are being asked for already for next year, so I want to make sure we get in.
I'd like to make the motion that we accept the tentative schedule for next year.
Motion to accept the schedule, do we have a second?
Second.
We have, any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carried.
Next, I wanted to let you all know, we've maybe talked about this once. The on page 40 of your iPads is the sign up for the email notification system. On the Barber website, this is available to the general public, but we have encouraged all of the board staff, and we encourage the board members as well to sign up for this email notification. This is how you would know of any rule changes that are proposed, just new things that come up. We encourage our licensees to sign up so that when they need to renew, they get a notification that it's time to renew as well, because some of them move and change addresses and forget to let us know. So this is a really good way, and when you go to the website, it's in the middle section, and it's just click here for notifications. This is then what it would look like. It asks for your email, zip code, and then at the bottom, you select the boards that you want information on. So you could select as many or just the one for Barber, and you would receive updates through the website. We have over 600 licensees or general public individuals that have signed up for our boards already, and which is great. Just a
I've
quick
already
way.
signed up
You have.
already, but I didn't receive any notification about my renewing of my license.
You did?
No, of
Did you
course I
sign
got a
up
hard
before?
copy. Yes, I
Okay.
did, but I got a hard copy in the
Okay,
mail, though.
I'll look into that.
Okay, I may have to go back and redo it again, but
It might have missed you, because, you know, they're 60 days in advance is when they go out, so that's what I'll ask about.
okay.
Absolutely. So that's general information for you all. Next piece I'd like to discuss and fill you in on is the process that PSI is looking at doing with the board, and so I'm going to need your approval on two different things. I'm on page 42, and the first piece is this form that you're looking at. It is the online application for exam candidates. This is the first piece that you'll approve, which is what the schools will be completing via a secure portal with PSI for all their students. They will complete, they have the flexibility of completing it for one student or in batches, and therefore, instead of submitting the applications to the board in paper and then we turning around and releasing the names to PSI, it can be done directly with PSI. We've been talking to the schools through different continuing educations and mentioning that this is in the works and we're thinking of doing this. So this is officially the application. You want to take a minute to look at it. The thought is that come October 1st, with some training to the schools before then, so we've got the whole month of September to do that. By October 1st, we'd like to release the tentative for those schools that want to start using it, start getting their password, their secure login credentials. They'll have 3 months, all the way to the end of the year, for all schools to start working on doing this application electronically. Come January 1st, we would like, or January 2nd, right after the holiday, we'd like to start the new year making it mandatory for the schools to send the information, again, directly to PSI. This is going to speed up the process, at least by a week or two for the schools. So instead of sending us the paper, they're sending it electronically directly to PSI. And the information they'll put in is, of course, the information that's kind of already available to them. They'll complete the student's name, date of birth. The only thing that's changed on this form is the codes. PSI late Friday mentioned that Master Barber, I think, is 11, Barber Technicians 12, and Barber Instructors 13. Those are internal codes that we wouldn't have necessarily caught, and I told them that that was not a problem, that we would change those numbers. But that's the form as it stands, and pretty much that section in blue is what the school would see when they log into this site.
Is that, I see a bunch of X's on Social Security. That's your Social Security?
Or will be putting in the Social Security number. And they do now in paper. They complete it so we get the Social Security in paper. So this secure site will take the birthday and the student's information.
But will the schools have the Social Security number?
Yes, yes, and they have it now. Absolutely. Yes.
Grants.
For grants,
I'm sure,
yeah.
yeah.
Licenses and everything.
I understand, yes. Yes.
There'd be a sufficient amount of tutorial for the schools. I know you mentioned 1 month. You think there'd be enough, or you think it'd be a sufficient amount? Because, as you said, come January, all schools will be mandatory to do this. So would there be a sufficient amount of tutorial for the schools to make sure that they're doing it correctly?
What we're hoping to do, we're going to offer 3 on-site training. PSI is coming in from Nevada with 2 or 3 individuals, and Rachel and I will be traveling with them. We're going to go to Knoxville, Memphis, and then in this building we will hold 1 session. The cosmetology schools have been sent the information already because they just approved it. Their meeting was earlier. So if you approve the form, we will mail to all the schools this flyer, letting them know that this is coming. A lot of the Barber schools already know, but those that don't, we are contacting the public schools. So we're going to send them the information and then the dates and times for the training in September. The reality is many of the schools may choose to not even come to the training because it's going to be as simple as, here's my username, and then they're just going to walk through the portal. It shouldn't be really complicated. The real estate board has been doing this electronically for a while, and they love it. And they tell us that it's very easy. So fortunately, we're not the first board to do it. We're hoping that that it went so smooth for them that we should be just fine. If for some reason that's not the case and we can't go live and make it mandatory in January, then we would reevaluate that. But we don't see that they'll have a problem doing it.
Okay, we need a motion for the new form.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the new online application.
We need a second.
I second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it, motion carried.
Okay, so the second part is very similar. You've approved the form itself. The second part is I need your approval for the electronic process to be the process that we're going to go with to receive this data.
Okay, we're getting into the digital world. Motion.
Motion we accept this particular process.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Question. If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it, motion carried.
Okay. This is a fun thing to share with you. Page 44, the board was contacted regarding Mr. Barber, a barber who is 90 years old. Mr. Benjamin Flagg is 90 years young, actually. He was honored, and that's what that article is. We could not confirm that he was, in fact, the oldest, because back then that wasn't a mandatory field and technology wasn't what it is now. He's been licensed since 1957. We have 41 or 44 licensees prior to him or from about that time. A couple are from 45 and 46 that they've been licensed. But because we don't have the date of birth, I couldn't confirm he really was. He probably is. But it's just a fantastic picture of him, just loves his job. And after that printed, I had 2 different family groups kind of contact me and say, my dad was licensed in 47 or 46. Surely he's the longest licensed. So it's been interesting to get families thinking along those lines and how wonderful that's been. So.
I got a haircut.
We should write about it. Wonderful.
1943. 1943, you probably had about $20 worth of hair. Now you got a quarter worth of hair.
That's right.
I want to update the board on our next inspector training. We do the annual inspector training, and on September 30th, we will have it here where our 9 inspectors will come in. We've just filled the latest position, or in the process of filling it, so we will have pretty much all of them in their locations. They'll come into this building. The training involves making sure that the notifications are done the best way they can. The inspections are consistent, and so legal as well as our folks that do technology are here to train all of our inspectors. If you think of
Background, before applying, what do they have to,
Well, up till now, all of our inspectors are either cosmetologists or barbers.
Okay.
This latest position is the first time that one did not need to be a cosmetologist or barber, but they have to have experience in those fields, whether through military or actually doing inspections for other agencies, something that's similar to what they do. So the training for our inspectors includes 1 week of them being in our office to see what it is that we do as a board, and then they follow two different inspectors on site. So they will go and actually inspect schools and shops and learn from two different styles, is my plan, and then they're on the field on their own. You know, they get their shops and their territory.
When you say military, that's just not any person?
Right now, they don't necessarily have to. They'll have to
They're not
learn.
qualified.
They'll have to
Just being in
learn.
the
Yeah,
military.
you would. You would. It's a lot of driving. It's a lot of driving. They really have to know the law, obviously, and our rules. And so that's where they'll not only follow the inspectors around, but have to do their homework on what that means. So, yeah. And that's a hard job. You know, they're the face of our board. So I'm looking forward to that training session.
Good.
Yeah.
They're the ones that keep all the shops.
If you think of anything that you would like to share with the inspectors, by all means, call me or email me, and I'll make sure that it's on the agenda for them.
Date again?
It's September 30th, and it will be here.
Okay.
September 30th, what time? 9 o'clock?
It's going to be all day. We're going
It's
to
gonna be all
start
day.
probably at 8:30 and wrap up by 4. They'll be spending, those that drive a longer distance will stay here and come the night before. And if you would like to attend, you're welcome to. I mean, it's just one of those things that I don't know that they've ever done it, but I welcome your questions for them or things that you want to make sure we cover.
What day do that 30th fall on?
It's
There.
Friday.
It's on a
Well,
Friday.
It's a Monday? Thank you. It's a Monday.
Good.
Because that's
That's
usually
better.
their,
That's better.
usually their home
Yeah.
day where they
Yeah.
prepare their paperwork.
Right.
Yeah. And I'll update you afterwards as well, yes.
We haven't had Barber School inspections. Started that and it got killed.
And you're talking about similar to what the cosmetology would do, where a board member would go to look at the paperwork, not just, okay, because I know our inspectors do the physical one. Okay, that's,
Barber schools have not been inspected. Ryan, you have yours? No.
How often should the board inspect a barber school? How often?
Once a year?
Once a year?
physical, yeah, the physical is definitely once a year by our barbers, and cosmetology is once a year, and it must be done by September 1st. So they've got an actual due date. And I'll definitely look into it, and we'll have to discuss maybe at the October meeting how we get the board members to start doing that. Had you all addressed it in any previous meetings?
I was appointed to the board, and when I was appointed to the board, my job was them with the school that had more connections than we did. Because he said I was trying to proselyte. Some of the board members have visited some schools, but none of them have been all the name, but they didn't have driver's license in their files. They didn't have Social Security card. Some didn't have report cards in their files. Their files were just a mess. Since that time, none of the schools have been.
Is that what they call throwing?
And if I can make a suggestion, if this comes up again and you are ultimately tasked with going to inspect the same school again, in order to say, if there are any schools that you think that there may be a problem with, allegations, something like that, then maybe try and get another board member to go with you, so you've got So you've got a witness to what's going on.
All the schools that I visited have written me, called me, sent me emails. When are you coming back? We enjoyed your visit. He was a big help to us with their paperwork and this sort of. Nobody's doing anything, and it would be great if the mayor.
Off of the, whatever it was, inspection team?
Yeah.
Was board decision, I mean, not a board decision.
Wasn't a board decision.
But a director
No.
decision?
No, it was Terrence. Terrence
An
Bond.
attorney decision?
Yeah.
Oh, well. We could take that, and we could start doing that again. We'll
I can look at checking with you who is interested and who can do the inspections, because that's one of the pieces. We would have to divide the areas in the schools.
I think right now, even when a school is being opened, the inspector as well as Barber board member inspects that school.
That is correct.
So we're talking about just going around inspecting school that's already open.
Absolutely, every year. And what I can do for our meeting for October is, I think we've got 23 Barber schools, have the names of the schools for you to see based on where they are closest to each board member, if that would be okay, and divide them that way. That's kind of how we've done with cosmetology, and if you approve it at the next.
At the time I went with the inspector of that local area that always inspecting that area where the school was, and I was assigned to go inspector to that school along with them.
That just for the opening, or when you did it as a separate annual inspection, went together?
As an opening, and also we had a problem with the school once before that I was sent there with the inspector. That normally inspected that area in that school.
I will definitely have for our October meeting the list of the schools. It'll be on the iPad so you can see.
I firmly believe the opening of a new school, there should be an inspector and a Barber board member there.
That is
as
how
far
we
as
do
a
it.
new school is concerned.
Correct.
Was that scheduled for,
Next year.
are we meeting in September?
No, we don't have a meeting in September. We do in October.
Okay.
So that's when I'll have this available for you to look at, and if some of them pose conflicts, we can still fix them, and we can start as soon as you're ready. If January works out great, we start, and if you want to start sooner, we can do that. The next thing I want to share with you is the continuing education. The session in Knoxville on July the 21st, I was able to attend, and that was just wonderful. It was great seeing you there.
Yes, it was
Mr. Hunt?
wonderful. It was a wonderful seminar, but I'm still concerned about getting more barbers involved in it. 90% is cosmetologists, and I would like to see more barbers in it. And the cosmetologists, they came to me with a lot of questions that I could not answer because I'm in the barber field, and it wasn't any cosmetologists board members there this time. And we was wondering, why they asked me why weren't there any cosmetology board members there, because it had been in the past, and I said, well, I don't know. But they asked me the question that I could not answer.
Do they serve food?
Yes, they do.
Well, that's amazing.
It was very well done. That
Yes. I mean, it's very organized and it's very motivated. They motivate you. I mean, it's just a wonderful seminar. I'll be honest with you. I enjoyed it every year.
And I went then just last week to the one over here at Tennessee State University on the 12th as well, and that was nice. Our website has the new dates, adding the expertise date. So if you ever have anyone questioning, we still have in October now continuing education. Usually by now we're done, but because of their dates, we've got that addition. So those have been going very well. The other thing to inform you is that most likely by the October meeting, you will have a financial year-end presentation. Assistant Commissioner Bill Giannini and Rachel will prepare that. They're doing it for all the boards, just to kind of, since our fiscal year ended, they'll do a recap and update us on where we're at. So they'll be able to present for the.
So that we can have a rule-making hearing, change of fees, if that's what it takes. But we just need to know if we're getting close to the red.
They'll present at that meeting, and the executive directors of each board are expected to be a part of the budget and be more involved in all that. So I think that's wonderful. I think that's wonderful.
Just for the record, I'm sure the board members that have been around a while know this, but rulemaking. So this particular board meets more often than most other boards. With that, you're looking at, 30 days lead time to run it through the appropriate people before we even bring it. Tentative vote to have a rulemaking hearing. Then at the next meeting, you vote on the text of the rules. Then it goes forward to the AG's office for legal review. Then it comes back. Then it goes to the Secretary of State's office for publication. Best case scenario, you're looking at about 6 months. So all that to say, if that's something that in consultation with Roxana that the board is necessary, it's not something that you can wait until you're already in the red or right up at the red to do, because it won't take effect in time. So that's just something to bear in mind.
Next on your iPads, we're on page 45, is the consent orders for August, which total $750. They're presented for the board's approval.
A motion that we approve and accept the consent orders.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? In order, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carried.
All right, next item on the agenda will be the legal report. Should be there on your iPads. We've got 12 matters that are up for initial preliminary consideration, and then item number 13 is a representation of a matter previously considered by the board, and we'll address each of these in turn. So go ahead and get started. Item number 1, 2013-00-8361. This complaint alleges that the respondent, which is a Barber school, overcharged a student, the complainant in this matter, who withdrew from school prior to completing her education, that an instructor at the school used overtly sexual phrases during the course of instruction, and that classes at the school frequently wasted students' time and did not properly instruct students relative to certain barbering concepts. It appears that the school appropriately charged the complainant a prorated amount for supplies used during the educational hours attended, and that the reason the students' remaining balance upon leaving the school was so high was because a portion of the student's loan proceeds, which had been applied to her tuition and fees, had to be removed from her account and refunded because she withdrew from school before completing her education. Additionally, the instructor in question and the school both stated in their response that discussion of sexual issues is generally only taught as part of the HIV and disease transmission part of the education, and that the school has a clear policy in place against sexual harassment and discrimination of any kind. Finally, the school has a high passage rate for students who graduate from its Barber program and take the Barber exam, which speaks to the effectiveness of its teaching methods. It appears that the complainant's true motivation to leave school, as evidenced by a written statement to this effect signed by the student, was so that she could be closer to home. Accordingly, the file contains insufficient evidence to substantiate the complainant's allegations. Recommendation is to dismiss the complaint. Item number 2, number 2013-008341. The complaint alleges that the respondent school misrepresented to a student that she would be eligible for instructor hours toward a Master Barber instructor license if she participated in a paid program through the school prior to obtaining a Master Barber license. It is unclear from the documentation in the file whether the respondent school itself ever made any such representations to the student. However, there appears to be some evidence to suggest that the complainant student in question was paid for her work by the school through a grant from an entity not subject to regulation by this board. Additionally, there is some question as to whether the board's former executive director may have approved such an arrangement. As such, in order to make clear to the school that a student may not be paid for any work done during the course of obtaining educational hours to count towards a Master Barber and/or instructor license, a letter of warning is recommended. Item number 3, number 2013-010391. The complaint alleges that the respondent, a Master Barber and Barber instructor working for a barber school at all times relative to this complaint, misrepresented to a student that she would be eligible for instructor hours toward a Master Barber instructor license if she participated in a paid instructor program through the school prior to obtaining her Master Barber license. The file contains insufficient evidence to substantiate this allegation. However, there appears to be some evidence to suggest that the complainant student in question was paid for her work by the school through a grant from an entity not subject to regulation by this board, and there are some questions to whether the board's former executive director approved such an arrangement. As such, in order to make clear to the licensee, Master Barber and instructor, that a student may not be paid for any work done during the course of obtaining educational hours counting towards a Master Barber and/or instructor license, a letter of warning is recommended. And items number 2 and 3 are related. One complaint is against the school, the other is against...
Yeah, we're
A lot of questions surrounding that, too.
Well, and any questions we'll come back to and take them one at a time. Item number 4, number 2013-006071. This complaint was opened as a result of a cosmetology complaint and alleges that the respondent shop is operating using unlicensed individuals to perform services and that it is using another shop's license to conduct business. There is no evidence in the file to substantiate these allegations, and the cosmetology complaint alleging the same violations has already been dismissed. So the recommendation on that complaint is dismissal. Item number 5. This complaint alleges that the respondent, who holds a cosmetology license but not a barber license, offered to perform blade shave services to the complainant by phone. It appears that this complaint is more appropriately filed as a cosmetology complaint under TCA 62-4-127, subsection B5, for, quote, unlawful invasion of the field of practice of any profession because the respondent is a cosmetology licensee. The recommendation is to dismiss the complaint before this board and refer this complaint to the cosmetology board with a recommendation to open a complaint for potential violation or violations of the cosmetology statute. Item number 6, notice of violation, complaint number 2013-011241, alleges that the respondent barbershop is operating with an expired barbershop license. It is unclear from the available evidence whether barber services were actually being provided at the time of the inspection. Board office records indicate that the shop license in question has now been renewed. Recommendation is closure with a letter of warning. Item number 7, number 2013-011271. The notice of violation alleges that the area inspector observed the respondent, a licensed master barber, performing barber services in an assisted living facility that is part of a larger healthcare facility without a valid barbershop license. However, it appears that TCA section 62-3-109, subsection D, allows barbering services to be performed in this type of facility without a barbershop license. The inspector further states that the respondent handed him an expired barbershop license at the time of inspection. However, the inspector did call the board's office to confirm that the respondent did have a current valid license at the time of inspection, and the respondent's license was valid at the time of the inspection. As such, a letter of warning is recommended to remind the respondent that his current master barber license must be posted at all times. Item number 8, number 2013-011-281. The notice of violation alleges that the area inspector observed 2 cosmetologists and a licensed barber providing services to clients while the shop license was expired as of November 30th, 2012. The inspector states that the shop owner produced proof of a timely payment for the shop's renewal, and it appears that the respondent's license is current and in good standing. Additionally, the inspector found a small dog and a bed in the shop, but there is no indication in the file that the dog interfered with the business or was unsanitary. Finally, the inspector observed the shop sign, which lists a different name from the name registered with the board, but it is unclear whether displaying such signage is a violation of applicable law and/or rules. The tentative recommendation is for dismissal, but certainly open to discussion on this matter once we've got through all the items. Item number 9, 2013-011-301. The notice of violation alleges that the respondent's shop was open for business without a valid barbershop license. No services were being provided at the time of the inspection. Recommendation is closed with a cease and desist advisory notice. Item number 10, notice of violation on 2013-011-311 alleges that the area inspector observed that all trash containers were open in a licensed barbershop, and the inspector also observed clean towels improperly stored. The recommendation is authorized formal hearing with authority to settle by consent order upon payment of a $250 civil penalty. Item number 11, 2013-010-401. This complaint, filed by a barber school, alleges that the respondent owes the barber school at which he obtained his education $800, and as such that he should not have been allowed to obtain his master barber license. The school further alleges that the respondent was engaged in a romantic relationship with the employee of the school that signed off on his educational hours, and states that this is the only reason the respondent's educational hours were released, even though he still owed the school money. However, the evidence reflects that the employee of the school, who was both an instructor and manager at the time the respondent graduated, which was back in 2011, had both apparent and actual legal authority on behalf of the school to sign off on and to release the respondent's educational hours. Further, if the school wished to object to the student's hours being released, it should not have allowed the student to graduate, it should have prevented the employee in question from releasing the respondent's hours, and it should not have waited nearly 2 years to bring this matter to the board's attention. Finally, to the extent the barber school believes that the respondent owes it money, such a claim is a contractual matter which is outside the board's jurisdiction and more appropriately addressed in civil court. In summary, there appears to be insufficient evidence to support the school's allegations. As such, dismissal is recommended. Item number 12, which is related to item number 11, complaint number 2013-010-411. The complaint filed by the barber school alleges that the respondent, a former instructor and manager at the school, stole school files and other property, that she engaged in a romantic relationship with a student, and that she improperly certified and released the educational hours of a student that the school claims still owed money to the school. First, it appears that this matter has, at least in part, been considered by the board under the previous executive director and under a different complaint number. The prior complaint against the respondent was dismissed with no action. The respondent vehemently denies the school allegations and provided several letters from witnesses which state that any property removed from the school was her personal property, and those same witnesses also stated that the respondent frequently provided educational materials to students at the school from her own belongings in order to ensure that they received the best possible education and training. Additionally, as an instructor and manager for the school, at all times relevant to this complaint, the respondent had both actual and apparent authority to sign on behalf of the school and to release the respondent's educational hours. As such, there appears to be insufficient evidence to support the school's allegations, and the recommendation is dismissal. And then item number 13 is the represented item. This complaint was previously considered by the board at its April 2013 meeting with the following summary. The notice of violation alleges that the area inspector observed an individual cutting the shop owner's hair while the shop license had been expired since 6/30 of 2012. The inspector states that neither the owner nor the individual posted their personal license in the shop. Board office records indicated that the shop license has now been renewed. Based upon that information, the board decided to authorize a formal hearing with authority to settle by consent order and payment of a $250 civil penalty. The update is subsequent to receipt of the consent order, the respondent submitted a letter asking the board to reconsider the matter, stating that he cuts his own hair and that the individual observed by the inspector was not paid and that the individual in question was simply getting the hair off his neck. And based on the fact that no barbering services were being rendered or offered to the public for pay, a letter of warning is requested by the respondent, and because it appears the respondent's statement is consistent with the inspector's notice of violation, if the board agrees, then a letter of warning would be recommended and the previous consent order would be rescinded. That concludes the items on the legal report. I'll be happy to take questions at this time.
Number seven. To my knowledge, I thought that anyone could go to a nursing home and cut hair. I think you can be non-licensed. I think that came before the board once before, I believe. Am I not correct? As far as going to a nursing home.
Larry, you're supposed to have a license and post your license.
Right.
They have a shop in those nursing homes.
Right.
Yeah, sure.
And the license, Master Barber license need to be posted.
Yeah, but if I'm not mistaken, this came before the board once before, though, I believe.
Mr. Hyde, the individual in question does have a Master Barber license. He was not an unlicensed individual cutting hair. However, it does not appear, and frankly, the notice of violation doesn't say whether his license was posted at the time or not. So that was the reason for the letter of warning recommendation to admonish him that even if you are in a facility that may not require a shop license, you've still got to post your Master Barber license.
So if you go to a nursing home, you got to post a Master Barber license, right?
You're going to cut in some place, at least as I read the law right now, always subject to reconsideration if somebody shows me different, but just because the place in which you are cutting hair does not require a shop license doesn't mean that if you're providing barbering services that you don't have to have your Master Barber license available.
That also holds up if they go to the jail and cut hair. They have to take their license with them to the jail. You don't have to post it in the jail, but you got to have it on your physical being.
I have a question about number 8. There's a lot going on here. And the recommendation is dismissed to complaint. And as I read the violation, it alleges the area inspector observed 2 cosmetologists and a licensed barber providing service to a client while the shop license had been expired. Tell me a little bit about that.
Okay. In this situation, it appears that the license appeared to be expired but was in fact in good standing and had not yet been posted to the website, and the owner of the shop was able to produce a payment slip that preceded the date of inspection. So it hadn't worked its way through our end yet so that the website could be updated. So the reason that the 2 cosmetologists and licensed barber talking about the shop license expired is it really wasn't expired at the time. It just, it looked that way probably to the inspector and to the outside world, but based on the payment having been made beforehand and it just hadn't updated the website, that's not an allegation that could be substantiated if we moved it forward. The other...
the incident about the pets, I know this came up to the board a couple of years ago about the pets in the shops. Was there a rule or something concerning pets not being involved in the salon under the sanitation issue? I know in Memphis there cannot be any pets there. Memphis has a health department, and we have to buy a certificate, and the health department inspects the shops, cosmetology and barbers, and we're not allowed to have any pets in salons. So is there a rule that's governing across the state concerning pets? I know it came up to the board a couple of years ago about someone had wanted a parrot in the shop or something like that. What do you have?
Well, the barber laws in the past stated that the only animal that was allowed inside a barber shop was a dog, and it was a seeing eye dog. It had to be a blind man.
Service
That was
dog.
the only
Service
animal.
dog. Well,
But
service
now
dog,
they have
right.
passed where you can have birds and fish.
But that don't include
Is that right?
dogs.
No, it don't include dogs,
right?
so that's correct.
Well, the reason I wrote this up the way it did is because, my analysis was limited. At the time, I prepared this legal report to the Barber Law and Rules, and so it would be up to the board to determine whether it believes that a dog's presence is prima facie de facto unsanitary. And if that's the board's decision and wishes to make a disciplinary recommendation on that basis, that is generally speaking a matter left to the board's interpretation, although I might suggest that if the board feels strongly enough about it, that at the next rulemaking hearing, whenever that's going to be, that the board put something in a rule so that licensees have more clarity from this board as to what they may and may not do. And that's, and if there is, then that is something that the state and local health department would have to pursue if they were going to. The other piece of this to consider is, yes, the dog and the bed were in the shop, and logically it stands to reason that the owner probably owned it or knew about it, but that is something that at a formal hearing, if that is the sole allegation, you have to prove it, and the state has to prove it. And if the shop owner refuses to testify and the inspector did not elicit a statement or some sort of written admission from the shop owner that, yes, the dog is mine, yes, I'm keeping it here, then that is an element of, proving a sanitary violation that can't be met. Because, I mean, it's
Prima facie, if you see a dog in a shop and if there's health laws against it, I don't see where you'd have to get the owner or anybody else.
Well, and I'm not saying that the board could not potentially authorize disciplinary action on that basis, but I would, caution the board that is something that, were it to go to a formal hearing, if a consent order were not accepted, and even if the discipline went through at the ALJ level, it is subject to attack on appeal, potentially. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't make the disciplinary offer if that's what you believe is appropriate, because as a board, that is your responsibility, and that's you guys' job. But
I mean, it may sound far-fetched, but people do that. And I think that's why Shelby County Health Department is against any animals in any type of salon, cosmetology or barbering.
I would bet
And,
that Davidson County has virtually the same.
It may have, right? It may
setup.
have, right?
And then the state probably oversees all of it.
Probably do. Maybe it's something that we can suggest that we can make it a statute or something, a rule or something like that can be prepared and put before the board on next meeting, and we can look at it then, because
Well, I'd suggest that the check, before going to all of that,
Yeah.
check with the health department,
Yeah.
locally and state.
yeah, okay. Well, I know with Shelby County Health Department, I know
Do what?
It's always been a state law, you can have that.
Yeah, I think so.
It's always in the book.
Yeah.
We've already discussed that and hashed that out, that the only dog is supposed to be in there.
Certainly,
Being our dog.
Right,
Yeah.
right, the service.
It's already in
I thought that was
it's in
already
the
in
law
our
book.
session.
The inspector didn't say one way or the other whether it's a service dog. I would presume that if it were, that it would probably have been noted.
Right.
But, again, the notice of violation is typically the four corners of what we go on to start with, but if it's something that needs additional clarification from the inspector who performed the inspection, say, hey, was this a service dog or not? And if they say no, well, then okay, that answers that question. And so that's one thing. And if the board wishes to do that, we could table this complaint and until the next board meeting, make that request of the inspector to determine whether it was to confirm whether it was a service animal or not, even though it probably wasn't, and then bring this matter back at the next meeting for consideration with that information.
And as also about what the board can do in terms of making a change or rule change or whatever we may need to do. And as our chairman said, check with the health departments, see what they're.
We will absolutely do that, and if it, if it's appropriate and a referral needs to be made to those folks, because they would be in charge of enforcing their own codes and statutes and whatnot, if it turns out that a referral is needed, we would certainly do that.
Table this to the next board meeting?
I think we should.
Okay. All right. And the last one for me is number, the represented case. That's number 13. I really like for us to stay with the original board decision of $250 civil penalty, and that's all I have to say on it.
And, Mr. President and board members, it's typically not practice to bring matters back before the board after the board has already authorized potential discipline. However, if there's something that may potentially impact on the ability to uphold board's discipline on appeal, legally or otherwise, I would prefer that matter be considered up front before it goes forward, rather than, just kind of leave it hanging out there and as a potential issue where the discipline could get tossed otherwise. So that's why I brought this one back for you folks to look at. All right. Any other board members with questions on other items on the legal report?
There's a lot of concerns with 2 and 3, Chris. Background on that?
Okay. Well, then, when we do the vote on the legal report, we'll have you recuse yourself from voting in consideration on that matter. That's okay. Well,
I would like to be excused from voting on that.
okay.
Well, are we doing the right thing? Do you agree with the recommendation?
Mr. President, I might respectfully suggest that if Mr. Payne is going to recuse himself from voting, recusal from consideration would also be appropriate. Not because Mr. Payne's input wouldn't be valuable, because it certainly would be, but at the same time, whatever decision the board makes needs to be free of any appearance of impropriety or allegations of bias or conflict of interest. And with Mr. Payne having stated on the record that he has personal knowledge of the situation, then I believe it'd be also not appropriate for him to participate in the discussion and consideration as well.
I agree with that, except for one thing.
What information is it that,
We don't know without talking to Mr. Payne. But if somebody knows something
Yeah,
that we
right.
don't know and it's
Right.
wrong, we need to know it.
That's right.
Whether he's going to be a witness or no matter what. We have avenues, we've got to have avenues to get there. That shot the red flag sky high.
That's right.
does the board have any alternative ideas as to what it wishes to do with this matter? Does the board wish to make a disciplinary recommendation, or simply another option would be to refer this matter directly to the litigation team for a formal hearing before an administrative law judge? And what that would accomplish, if that's the board's will, would be the ability for the individuals in question who are involved in this to to testify if need be, to be called. And although the board would not, at a formal hearing, be participating, it would be an administrative law judge only. As I understand it, this board has authorized ALJs sitting alone to do formal hearings. So,
we might be jumping to a conclusion that's totally wrong, but we don't know that. Otherwise, we should be able to get that information either through going to a formal hearing that we don't know whether would be productive or not.
well, to that end, Mr. President, the legal file does contain the school's statement in the matter, and it also contains responses from the school and from the Barber instructor in question. And it's, I will be the first to admit that it's somewhat messy and a little bit complicated.
I thought that when we were going through the case, that that the two things, I like that last one too,
Yeah.
where you call somebody in to dust off your neck after you cut your own hair.
Well, and that's,
There's some avenue that needs.
well, and where the case stands right now, we have the information that we would typically receive prior to either discipline being authorized or a formal hearing being authorized, because we've got the complaint, and then we've got statements from the individual in question, and we've got certain documents that were analyzed in the course of preparing these descriptions. And so,
What I worry about, like I say, the red flag went up, eyeball on the school. Now, obviously, if I was the school owner, I'd expecting anything from lawsuits or anything else or fines. So you just got the complainant, and then in my mind, it's telling us we ought to be looking into that school more, that there's something there.
well,
Could be presupposing, but there again, we might be overlooking something detrimental to the students.
Well, that's possible, Mr. President, and if that's the board's thought and will on this matter, again, I would probably suggest that referral for a formal hearing would be most appropriate, and for this reason. The litigation attorney, whoever that is that gets assigned to this matter, has the ability to send out inspectors and/or investigators to obtain additional information in advance of even deciding whether or not to file formal charges or not. So if the board believes that it would be more appropriate to make that referral, have the litigator send someone out there to obtain whatever other information might be out there, and then bring it back to us for representation to the board to determine whether the board wishes to authorize formal charges or not, that's another avenue. We'll...
Dark room. Here, all of a sudden, we're faced with the possibility of something. We don't know what. Detrimental to the students, or it might not be, but we don't know. So, again, if this, what'd you call him? the lawyer that's going to look into it?
Litigator.
Litigator, yeah. Again, if he knows who to go to, if we could be in the same spot.
Well, I mean, it's not that difficult, really.
Well, I'll just come out and say real clear, if he knows to go to route, then that's good. Because that's where the red flag went up.
With respect, Mr. President, I absolutely would not recommend that and would put it in writing to that effect just because of the reasons I've already stated. However, there still, as I stated before, may be other avenues to obtain additional information, like we said, about, for example, and this is just something off the top of my head, I wouldn't presume to tell another lawyer how to do their job, but something I might recommend is for the litigator to have either an inspector or investigator go to the school and request records, all records on the person in question, so that there's not just some documents analyzed, but all documents that there are.
Their investigation would let us know whether we've done the right thing or not. That's the whole crux of the question. All of a sudden, we're presented with possibly
All right.
if we can satisfy that, that's fine.
Then in that case, my recommendation would be what it was before, subject to Mr. Payne's recusal, tentative referral for formal charges authorized, with the idea that the litigator assigned to this matter would obtain any additional information believed necessary to determine whether sufficient cause exists to file formal charges.
If the board, I'm just one speaking, but I'd like to put that.
Well, I will amend the recommendation on items 2 and 3, and then we'll vote on the legal report as amended at the end.
Okay.
All right. So that means we have had amendments so far to items number 2 and 3. and amendment to item number 8, which would be to table until October, and then item number 13, to leave the prior disciplinary recommendation as is. Are there any other items for discussion other than 2, 3, 8, or 13?
You want a motion of approval on that?
Well, I would like that if there are no other items to discuss, but if there are additional items to discuss, we need to do that first.
Okay. Do we have any other items for discussion? If not, board.
As amended.
The certain ones we brought out.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the legal report as well as the added amendments.
We have a motion, do we have a second? We have a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it, motion carried.
All right, and the last matter that we have before the board today is that somewhat of an update on the letter that the Barber Board previously submitted to the legislature. After the last meeting, Mr. Payne contacted us with some feedback and input on the letter and what was contained in it. He also sent some documentation that looks like it would be a place to start for the board to think forward about what changes might be necessary if the proposed technician program is approved by the legislature to go from 340 to 600 hours. And I will hand that out momentarily. In discussing this matter with Roxana, the kind of made its way up to the Assistant Commissioner's office, and what we've come up with so far is a thought to request authority from the board to ask for an Attorney General's opinion on the state of the law as it currently exists, on whether the current Barber statute already includes pedicuring under the section that says manicuring and nail care, and that would give us some valuable information from the standpoint that if the AG's office says that that's already included, then that particular amendment to amend the scope of barbering to include pedicuring would not be necessary. However, updates to the Barber Nail Tech program, which is what we're tentatively calling it because I hadn't come up with a better name so far, is that would be something for consideration as well. Now, there are two ways that might go, at least as I see it. If the Attorney General's office comes back and says, yes, pedicuring is within the scope, great. Go amend your rules accordingly. Add the curriculum, whatever, and leave in place probably the request for the 340-hour program to go to 600 and be called Barber Nail Tech. On the other hand, if the AG's office comes back and says, no, we don't think it's included in the scope, then it looks like the letter as is would probably be appropriate and still appropriate in the sense that it would make the change to the statute to specify that pedicuring is included, and then there would still be rule changes needed once the statute went through. The other benefit to this is that I think it's more likely than not that we could get this opinion back before the legislature reconvenes in January, because we're only in August right now. So if we get this out pretty quick, then, I don't want to put a time frame on the AG's office because I don't work there, but in my limited experience, it's generally been 60 or 90 days unless they're really backed up with other things. So if we could get feedback from their office, that would be helpful. And if the board approves that, I would also send a letter to the legislature to let them know, just kind of as an update, that we've requested an AG's opinion and that we will keep them in the loop of whatever that is and send them a copy. So with that, I will go ahead and hand this. How's that sound? Go ahead.
I'll read you a letter.
I think it certainly be prudent to send this.
Says, as a Barber Board member, I wanted to bring to your attention something I heard at the instructors program in August regarding the subject of adding pedicures to the scope of master barbering license. If there's any truth to this, would want you to consider the following. I can see problems with creating test questions for barbers to be accessed for performing pedicures from a text administrative standpoint on both written and practical exams. The current barber book listed as Milady's standard textbook of professional barber styling does not have reference material for teaching the curriculum to include pedicuring for barbers, only manicuring. We would not have material to reference written test questions which would be needed to be included in the written exam, as well as material constructing a pedicure section to be accessed as practical portion of the exam. We are unable to obtain any reference material with any barber textbooks that are on the market today. Please feel free to contact me directly if you should have any questions or concerns, and let me know what the board is interested in implementing. Are us going to other licensing scopes to obtain any reference material. So even our testing company is against adding this pedicure to manicure, and the board has never, ever, not one of these gentlemen has said that we were for adding pedicuring to the barber license, to the barber curriculum.
I still,
One moment,
aim
Mr.
with
Payne.
that, shouldn't we back up to an AG opinion and then start out from there?
Well, I do, but I think this letter should go with the
With respect, Mr. Payne, that letter would not be appropriate to include with an AG's request. If you wanted to include it with what was handed out to the board, we're happy to make copies, and if that is something that is of concern, then it will need to be addressed down the road in terms of, okay, if we're going to create essentially a new license and a new curriculum, well, somebody's going to have to come up with that. I don't know who does that. I'm just being as candid as I know how to be. I'm not in the profession, and I've been counsel for this board for like a year now. I don't have the foggiest idea who would come up with those things, but it's...
curriculum.
Well, you provided us some information about the curriculum,
I have a curriculum.
which was handed out to the board members just now.
Yeah.
Backing up, wouldn't it be prudent to get
My stance is that it would be, because at least if we do that first before the legislature convenes, then if the board needs to reconsider its prior letter, then at least it would be able to do that.
have time then?
You'd have a little bit of time, and you would have the knowledge of what the AG's office has to say about what you're proposing before you go forward, and then at that point, it also might provide you a little bit of cover that you might not otherwise have if there needed to be changes to the letter, because then you could say, well, we kind of thought the law was this way when we sent the letter, but now that we have something back from the AG that might run a little counter to what we thought, and there need to be changes made accordingly, then we can do that. It's one way of putting it. So that's...
Somebody else might challenge this and not get an AG's opinion, but get a court's opinion.
Anything's possible,
Yeah,
but...
so I think it'd be prudent to get the AG's report.
That's your opinion, Mr. President?
That's my opinion.
Okay.
Well,
And if you'd like to make...
the board's
If you'd like to make that a motion, then feel free to do so, and then the board can decide whether it wishes to second and/or approve it.
Board members, you've heard the discussion. We now need a motion to either send this to the AG for their opinion and give us a starting point, or take off in any direction.
I'd like to make the motion that we get an opinion from the AG's office.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Do we have any further discussion? If not, all in... Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carried.
President, that concludes my legal report and all legal matters, and turn it back over to Roxanne if she has anything else.
I have nothing else, Mr. President and board members. If there's anything else, let us know. Otherwise, we will leave it to you.
One question came up at the symposium. Barbers take females for testing. Barbers take female models for testing.
Oh,
Now, so many black female ladies wear their hair so short. A lot of the white female ladies wear their hair so short. They were asking. Back when I tested, I thought we used female models.
Well, it would require a rule change, because
Current change?
current rule says it must be
Male only?
male model.
Yeah.
So if that's something the board's interested in making a change, then let us know, and that can be included in the next rulemaking packet proposal. Since we don't have a meeting in September, that'll give us a little additional time, and I'll see what I can come up with, at least get us a running start on some rules, because at least me looking back, it seems like it's been a while since we've had some new ones. So, and then we'll go from there. So,
As a school owner member of the board, I can see where it would be beneficial to the students, because they have to get models to take to the board. Sometimes they can't get male models, and if they
Now, the board requires a certain type of haircut, right? It's a fade, and
Well, it would
requires
be-
a certain
it would-
type.
yeah.
Now, like I said, females wear their hair just like the males do now. They forget it. Now, if they do that type of haircut, I don't
Right.
see no problem with it. Okay,
it doesn't say what, it just says.
it don't
take off
require a
half
fade, it
inch.
just require half an inch.
or more has to come off all over the head.
Well, you take it out with the clippers or the scissors. Yeah, or the razor, and you can use all three.
You can take a half inch of hair.
A ball, man.
see, so you gotta look. You can't survive, man. Okay.
entertain a motion to adjourn.
Need a motion to
Motion to
adjourn.
adjourn.
A second.
Second?
A second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Are we to return these back?
Christian, we need to keep these.
Those are yours.
Okay.
On this,
Off button, we have on this.